G'day everyone, welcome back to True Eagle. Just a short, sharp video today to discuss the injury situation. Noah Long's been ruled out for the rest of the season with his PCL injury and the flow-on effect it's going to have with regard to the mid-season draft. So I did gloss over this a little bit in my Eagles Demons preview, which you can now find on the channel. And then I thought, it probably deserves its own video, so I don't have to worry about how long the video is going to be. So injury list came out yesterday, so let's have a look. We now have just the one player ruled out for the season in Noah Long, and this is unfortunate. But, like I said, I think from the very outset with his injury, we were kind of led to believe it was going to be long-term. And for me, while it sucks that he's out for the year, I do feel a sense of comfort from the fact that we have a firm diagnosis on it and there's closure to it, and we also now have an opportunity to draft someone in the mid-season draft. Had it been a case of, he might be back for round 21 and maybe he'll play the last couple of games in the waffle, it would have been a little bit of grey area as to whether that's actually a good result for us. Is it best for him to just rest up, focus on his recovery, and not have his next preseason affected, which I believe will be the case. As in, to be clear, his next preseason won't be affected. That's probably good for him. There's a lack of pressure there. If he was coming back and there was still a month left in the season and we had a really firm idea of when he would be available, then I would suggest don't put him on the inactive list. But it seems like we've made the call, just get him right for next year, and I think on balance, it's a result that I can tolerate because we always expected it to be line ball season or end of season. It was never a case of this was only going to be a 4-weeker by the sounds of it. So that opens up a spot in the mid-season draft, which I'll get to, and we'll just cover a few of the other injuries. We know Elijah Hewitt's still listed as post-bye. As far as we know, he's past the recovery stage, I think. He's just, building up his fitness, so they're just placing a relaxed return to play on that. So hopefully that's going well. The one that does kind of concern me is Rhett Bazzo. He's been listed as having a groin injury, and his return to play has been at 4 to 6 weeks. It's now down to 4 to 5 weeks, but I feel like that's been there unchanged more or less with a couple of fluctuations for the last month. So that's concerning and not on the whole surprising with respect to groins, because they are pretty hard to diagnose an accurate return to play, and we've got this wrong in the past. So I'm not necessarily frustrated at the club for not knowing his return to play. They're obviously just being cautious with what can be a pretty tricky injury. We've seen some good players curtailed by that in the past, most recently Elliot Yeo, of course. This is a shame. Obviously the priority is just getting him healthy again, but I think we're probably at the point where we might not expect too much of Rhett Bazzo this year. And that's relevant as well when you consider our mid-season draft needs and what list holes we have that we need to plug. Because, I've talked about it on this channel, but the tall defender, with Jamison also out, he should be back in the next few weeks, I hope. But that's one area of depth that we probably need bolstering with Rhett Bazzo. We might not see him this year. Oscar Allen's still listed as 3 to 4 weeks. Again, I don't know how much of this is just load building at the moment. He's just building up his fitness, I think. Maybe they're taking a relaxed approach to that as well. I don't know to what extent he still has soreness or anything like that. But he's 3 to 4 weeks, which pretty much puts him, on the other side of the bye, as certainly for AFL minutes. Jamison, 2 to 3 weeks. That's down from 3 to 4. Petrocelli, we know that's the new injury. Could be 1 week. It could be 3 weeks. Who knows? Matty Flynn and Harry Barnett will also return to Waffle Eagles action next week, because this week the Waffle Eagles have a bye, which has probably come in handy. So let's talk about the mid-season draft. Now, this is not something that I've actually really invested in to this point of the season, and what we can say is it lacks a number one standout candidate. Now, things could change because the coverage will probably ramp up over the next, 15 days or so. I think we're 15 days out for the mid-season draft, and unfortunately, as I said in my last video, I'm going to be in Greece for the last 10 days of May. So my ability to cover this properly, unfortunately, will not be to its usual mediocre standard. I won't be able to cover much of it at all, but we can talk through a few options. And usually by now, I feel like in the past, we've had a pretty clear number one candidate. In both cases, we were lucky enough to hold pick 1, and that's something to bear in mind here. We will be holding pick 3, unless something dramatic changes on the ladder. It's probably not going to get better or worse. It's probably going to be pick 3. We were in a good spot when Jai Culley and Ryan Marrick came through. And, in particular, I think Marrick is, a potential gun, and Jai Culley looks pretty good. We'll see. Either way, I'm very happy that we have both of them on that list. So I do think we need to take this quite seriously as an opportunity to keep adding young talent to our list, and preferably who fills a bit of a list gap. So there's a number of names here that I'll read out. So one of them is Jack Hutchinson, and he's probably the strongest candidate in this mid-season draft batch. He's 22, plays Collingwood's reserves, if I'm not mistaken, 190 centimetres, half-forward flank. Now, the only arguments against him is that, I really don't think that's a position of need at the moment. Considering Cully is sort of playing in that forward space at the moment, and Ryan Marrick is in that role as well, and that's just the mid-season draftees we've taken. So it creates this interesting conversation of, do we just simply go for the best available talent, or do we look at list needs? And I think when you're dealing with speculative talents like this needs to be treated like the rookie draft to some extent, perhaps a slightly higher standard than the rookie draft. But because it's so speculative, there's a strong argument to just say, take the best player that you possibly can. It's just unfortunate that the best player that is there potentially is a half-forward flanker. Having said that, I did just acknowledge we don't have pick 1 anyway, so it may not be our problem. We're going to have pick 3. I think that North Melbourne, you'd think, would probably go tall. And I'd probably also lean towards going tall, but of course it depends on what prospect is there. It's got to be the right prospect, right? So I think North Melbourne's needs are both forward and back, and therefore we can probably expect them to take one of the talls available. They are probably the last team in the league who needs to add a medium-sized forward. When you look at their list and how many medium-sized forwards North Melbourne have, Richmond probably have a bit more of a blank canvas. So that's where you probably expected Jack Hutchinson to end up, potentially, if they do indeed think that he is the best prospect in this talent pool. If we're looking at it from a strictly needs point of view, I think a key back is probably what we need. Otherwise, maybe like a strong outside runner. I don't think the outside mids and wings on our list at the moment are necessarily a point of strength, that's for sure. There's a young fella from Peel, he's 22, 196 centimetres, called Jacob Blight, and he is a key defender who has been talked about in the top group of prospects in this mid-season draft and might be the most suitable for us. There's also Jasper Scaife, 197 centimetres from West Perth, as a key forward. I think our needs are probably more backward of centre than forward of centre in terms of tolls, but these are just some names to keep an eye on. There's also a guy called Ben Hopkins who is considered one of the best prospects in this draft again, and he's a 190 centimetre running defender from Dandenong, and I do probably hold space for the idea that we could add some run and carry out of our back half. I think as far as the under 22 talent on our list goes, I don't think we've got a whole stack of running defensive talent. I mean, there's Burgeel, hasn't played a game yet. I think he's playing on the wing in the waffle at the moment. Either way, certainly something we could bolster. So from a list point of view, that makes sense. The only players I probably wouldn't prioritise in this mid-season draft are, I don't think we really need another ruck. Between Flynn, the two Williamses, you got Colin Livingston, you got Harry Barnett, and you also got Jamison who can play that role. That's probably one area of the ground where I'd say if we picked a ruck, I'd probably scratch my head a little bit. But again, it does come down to the right prospect. So I could rattle off a few more names for you, but at the moment, I think there's probably other places you can find that kind of content to a higher standard than what I can provide you with. But that's a general outline of my thoughts for this mid-season draft. I would prefer that we go on the younger side. So I'd probably say 24 and under. It is hard to imagine we would pick someone over 24 anyway, but it's a good opportunity to keep adding young talent to our list. That being said, if there's a Joe Richards, was he 22 or 24 even? If there's someone like a Joe Richards in the state leagues that nominate for this draft, then, I don't really mind. If they're 24, it's fine. Over that probably seems excessive. So, but it's nice, it's another opportunity for us to add some talent to our list. And I do think, this has been a great avenue for us to catch up a little bit in recent years. Obviously, we missed a few drafts of high draft picks. We were able to make that a little bit back with addition of, in particular, Ryan Marrick and, of course, Jai Cully. So again, we got a third opportunity, albeit this time not at pick 1. But let me know in the comments what you hope we do with this mid-season draft pick. I'm intrigued to see. I always love draft day. It's like Christmas. Not quite as exciting as the actual national draft, but nonetheless, should be good. So let me know in the comments what you think, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.